She's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout. Like she's completely camera ready. And she also is pretending that she's crying. There isn't a tear in sight. It's an actor's trick.
I just think she's crying for sympathy, playing the victim when there's nothing to be a victim about. And there's also no sympathy to be granted for this lifestyle that she's chosen to live.
It started with tears. At least that's what she wanted us to believe.
That she's crying. There isn't a tear in sight. It's an actor's trick.
Meghan Markle appeared in her latest podcast interview seated across from billionaire Jamie Kern-Lima, dressed down in sweats, supposedly barefaced, and framed by warm, soft lighting. From the opening seconds, the mood was clear. This was meant to be emotional, unfiltered, real, but the illusion didn't hold. Her hair was professionally styled, her skin looked photo-ready, and not a single tear actually fell. Viewers quickly pointed it out across social media.
We work so hard. The moment that everything sells out, it doesn't mean that we're done. It means we're working on replenishment and what are the next SKUs and what's the next tranche of products and what's the timing on that and writing the newsletters and writing the social media captions and making sure that all that feels in line and what's the cadence of it.
No smudged mascara, no puffy eyes, not even the damp glint of a real cry. What should have felt intimate came off like a script. Her voice wavered, sure, but the emotion didn't match her eyes. The entire scene played out like a well-rehearsed monologue, not a breakdown. Just hours after its release, clips were circulating online with viewers mocking the crying with no tears act and pointing out her past admission that she could cry on command during her Suits days. Left eye, one tap.
40 minutes into the podcast, this little picture, quite a grainy picture, flashed up, which shows a basket of, homemade preserves with a card on it, HRH, Duchess of Sussex, Meghan.
She once bragged to a photographer. Now, watching her sniffle without breaking a single sweat bead, those old quotes resurfaced with a vengeance. What was supposed to be a moment of openness only reinforced what critics have said for years. Meghan doesn't open up. She performs. Just days before the Teary podcast dropped, Meghan's professional image took a direct hit. Netflix had quietly canceled her upcoming cooking show, a project tied to her brand new lifestyle label, American Riviera Orchard. The show was meant to center around home cooking, family bonding, and California charm.
And this was one of the most every mother out there will understand. She wants us to put together a fruit crudité board for our children in the morning. Now, look, Maureen.
I can't.
Look at this.
I can't.
But according to official industry updates published by Variety and Deadline, the streamer pulled the plug before filming even began. Internal documents showed that Netflix found the concept non-essential and misaligned with core audience engagement. In plain terms, it wasn't worth the money. This wasn't the first time a major platform backed away. Spotify already axed her podcast archetypes after just one season. Despite a $20 million deal, Meghan and Harry reportedly produced only 12 episodes.
I've never seen someone that struggles to just give us like one strip of authenticity.
The Wall Street Journal later confirmed that Spotify executives felt duped, with one calling the couple grifters in a now infamous post-mortem. The streaming giant's head of content said the two didn't meet productivity benchmarks, a polite way of saying they didn't deliver. That was a major red flag for Netflix, who had invested far more and now had little to show. And Meghan wasn't helping her case. During the podcast with Lima, she dropped several claims that sounded less like casual conversation and more like PR lines.
I don't like her.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
Everybody who works for her quits. Everybody says she's a bully. She's very nasty. Not only is she incredibly controlling, but she's a bitch about it to everybody who works for her. When things inevitably start spiraling downward, she blames everyone but herself.
She said she sends her children, both under 6, handwritten emails every single night. Not stories, not notes, emails. The statement stunned listeners. Most toddlers can't even spell their names, let alone open inboxes. Critics weren't buying it. Parenting blogs called the idea absurd, and child psychologists openly questioned the intention behind it. Was it genuine motherhood, or just another crafted talking point designed to paint her as the perfect, thoughtful mom?
You're complaining about your hard life, and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
It's ridiculous.
Then came the gift basket story. A soft anecdote meant to warm hearts, but it backfired fast. In the middle of the interview, Jamie Kern-Lima revealed Meghan had once sent her a basket filled with homemade jams and treats. But the card attached was signed Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That would have been touching, if not for the legal issue. Meghan Markle was stripped of the HRH styling in early 2020 as part of her royal exit agreement with Buckingham Palace.
She is doing a cooking show on Netflix. I only watched 5 seconds of it, and I thought she was going to cut her wrist by trying to zest a lemon. This girl has never been in the kitchen in her life.
Using it again, even in private, raises legal eyebrows. And this wasn't a one-off. Photos of branded items from American Riviera Orchard showed the HRH title printed on several labels. Whether it's technically illegal or just misleading, the message was loud and clear. She still wants the title, even if the crown is gone. Instead of appearing relatable and grounded,
she's trying to sell herself as this wholesome mother who's baking cookies and making tea for the rest of the family.
Meghan came off as someone clinging to a version of herself the public no longer believes in. The tears didn't move people. The claims about parenting didn't inspire. The canceled show became the latest symbol of a brand built more on image than impact. But what followed was even harder to ignore. Behind the warmth of her podcast voice and the soothing tone of her anecdotes, Meghan launched into a detailed description of her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. She spoke about how everything sold out in 30 minutes, how she was managing product launches, writing captions, planning inventory, and juggling motherhood all at once. But behind those polished talking points was a growing pile of consumer complaints and hard facts that painted a very different picture. CNBC confirmed the product quantities were extremely limited. Some items were barely in stock at all, likely under a few dozen units. Selling out wasn't a sign of high demand, it was a marketing setup.
They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends.
And customers weren't happy. The Better Business Bureau officially opened a file on As Ever LLC, Meghan's registered company, after complaints flooded in. People said they paid for jam and other products but received nothing. As of May 2025, multiple refunds were still pending and the company hadn't issued a public statement. It didn't end there. The United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO records, show new filings from Meghan's team for a bizarre range of items: yoga mats, dog bowls, and scented oils. None of them related to her podcast, her cooking show, or even her public image as a mother and mental health advocate. It wasn't a lifestyle brand, it was a grab bag of generic goods. As Meghan tried to present herself as an authentic creator on the podcast, more contradictions piled up.
I find it a little bit cringe to give a gift to a close friend and sign it Her Royal Highness.
Why even in private? She's using that full title, Her Royal Highness.
She claimed to make her children fruit crudité boards in the mornings and organize school drop-offs herself, acting like a hands-on, overstretched mom. But public reports from their Montecito estate paint another story. Their home staff includes a live-in nanny, multiple assistants, and private drivers. That's not uncommon for celebrities, but the problem was pretending otherwise. Her version of struggle didn't resonate with real working moms, and the internet called it out immediately. The podcast host, Jamie Kern-Lima, didn't push back once, not even gently. Instead, she praised Meghan endlessly. "You're so brave. You're such an inspiration. You've built so much." It didn't feel like an interview. It felt like a branding exercise. Lima is no amateur. She sold her beauty company to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. She knows how to build a real empire. But rather than offering hard-earned insight, she spent the full hour nodding along, acting more like a publicist than a host. It wasn't just awkward, it felt fake. Meghan kept repeating how she hadn't seen the questions in advance, as if to convince the audience this wasn't scripted. But the more she insisted, the less people believed it. Every segment was too smooth, every answer too polished. Even her crying seemed practiced. In an old promotional clip for Suits, Meghan once bragged that she could cry on command by tapping her left eye. And now, here she was again, emotional but perfectly composed. The Daily Mail's Alexander Larman said it best. Her tears are a PR strategy. One user online joked, "Even her sadness has a stylist." What was supposed to be her comeback moment became yet another PR disaster. Then came the final blow. Just as the podcast began trending, Prince Harry gave an interview to the BBC that only made things worse. Sitting alone in a stark studio, he delivered a somber message accusing his father, King Charles III, of ignoring security risks for him, Meghan, and their children. His tone was grim. "If anything happens to us, look where the responsibility lies," he said, referencing the king directly. But instead of sympathy, the reaction was outrage. Legal records from the UK High Court confirmed Harry had already lost his appeal to have UK taxpayers fund his private security. He wasn't asking for fairness, he was demanding special treatment. And now, dragging a cancer-stricken monarch into it, he crossed a line. The backlash was immediate. The Mirror reported that King Charles was deeply distressed by the comments. Senior Palisades, according to ITV News, began holding closed-door meetings to reevaluate contact with the Sussexes. Leaked memos revealed that Charles no longer trusted private conversations with Harry, fearing they could end up in a Netflix special, or worse, another tell-all memoir. The family's silence wasn't coldness, it was defense. But Meghan didn't stop. Days later, she appeared on stage at the Time 100 Summit in New York. She wasn't on the 2025 list of honorees, but she was given a platform anyway. Time Studios had recently partnered with WME, her agency, raising questions about whether the appearance had been arranged behind the scenes. Her speech was filled with vague platitudes, joy in small things, sprinkling petals on scrambled eggs, and critics pounced. Word salad, one-time editor was overheard saying off mic. GB News slammed her appearance as a performance piece with zero depth. The moment that really lit up the internet was when Meghan compared Prince Harry to Super Mario. He slayed the dragon and saved the princess, she said with a dreamy smile. It didn't land. Who exactly was Harry saving her from? The family she rejected? The media she now courts for attention? Or the life she walked away from to chase Hollywood deals? The symbolism was clear, but the fantasy had cracked. Documents from Companies House in the UK confirmed that even their Sussex Royal Foundation was formally dissolved this year. All projects associated with it were either completed, suspended, or absorbed into US-based ventures. Meghan's pivot into the wellness space didn't come from growth. It came from necessity. Her former partners were backing out. Spotify cut ties. Netflix trimmed down their involvement. Even Goop, the wellness giant led by Gwyneth Paltrow, reportedly passed on a potential collaboration after a private pitch deck presentation. Page Six confirmed the rejection, citing her polarizing reputation. Then came a haunting accusation, one that for some crossed a dark line. During a live broadcast, royal commentator Angela Levin repeated a belief whispered in palace circles that Meghan and Harry's endless public attacks may have accelerated Queen Elizabeth II's decline. It's not just speculation. The Queen's final year was marred by repeated public embarrassments, legal threats from Harry, and the fallout from their Oprah interview. Whether medically true or not, the idea took hold. Public sentiment hardened. The couple weren't just seen as rebels, they were becoming villains in the royal story. Megyn Kelly didn't mince words either. In a televised segment, she called Meghan a malignant narcissist and mocked the entire podcast as a self-therapy session wrapped in fake empowerment. The Telegraph's Celia Walden described the episode as emotional manipulation in podcast form, adding that Meghan was trying to sell sympathy to an audience that had already changed the channel. By the end of the week, the numbers told the real story. Streaming stats dropped. Engagement on American Riviera Orchard's social media dipped by nearly 40%. Hashtags like Duchess of Drama and Odd Tears on Cue began trending again for all the wrong reasons. And now, even her most loyal followers are beginning to step back. The brand, unstable. The show, canceled. The podcast, ridiculed. The public, divided. But the mask, it's slipping. And once the mask slips, it's almost impossible to put back on. By the end of the podcast, Meghan offered a quiet, emotional thank you to Jamie Kern-Lima for her friendship and for trusting her with the first ever podcast appearance. But even that moment, soft and personal on the surface, didn't feel real. Viewers weren't moved. They were exhausted. The hour-long conversation had circled around brand plugs, exaggerated parenting stories, and surface-level reflections dressed up as deep truths. It wasn't honesty, it was packaging, a lifestyle brand masquerading as vulnerability. And people noticed. Former fans, bloggers, even royal historians began turning away, not because Meghan was flawed, but because she refused to admit it. Every authentic appearance seemed like a photo shoot in disguise. Every setback became a staged comeback. Instead of listening, she was talking. Instead of reflecting, she was branding. The words were soft, but the message was clear. I'm still in control. But outside her bubble, the empire was wobbling. Spotify had already cut the cord. Netflix was scaling down. And now, Meghan's brand, her identity, was tethered to products like strawberry jam and bath salts. Public documents filed with the US Trademark Office showed a frantic expansion into whatever market might bite. Skincare, pet food, even digital media. It didn't read like strategy, it read like desperation. Meanwhile, staffers who once worked closely with the couple began quietly walking away. Buckingham Palace confirmed at least 2 internal HR complaints filed during Meghan's royal tenure. Real paperwork, not rumors, though sealed. Their existence alone dealt a blow to her carefully built narrative. Even her former head of communications in the UK stepped down without public support. These weren't anonymous whispers. These were documented exits. A trail of people who once believed, now gone silent. And still, Meghan keeps reaching for the crown she left behind. Every branded jar, every polished interview, every breathless anecdote about motherhood and mindfulness, it all leads back to one goal: keep the spotlight. But that spotlight is fading, not because of the media, not because of the critics, but because the audience no longer believes the show. The Duchess of Drama, once the symbol of a modern, independent royal, is now viewed by many as a walking contradiction. Demanding privacy while dropping emotional confessions on Spotify, rejecting royal life while using its titles on jam labels, calling herself authentic while staging every tear. The show isn't over, but the applause has stopped.